There's a common myth that ransomware attacks are only possible on physical servers and not on cloud services. However, this is far from the truth. At its core, ransomware is a type of malicious software that encrypts a victim's files. The attacker then demands a ransom from the victim to restore access to their data. An attack like this can be extremely devastating, and while they're often associated with on-premise or physical servers, the principles behind them apply just as much to the cloud. The environments may be different, but the threats are very real and can be just as damaging if not properly managed. And the fact that ransomware attacks can and do happen in the cloud means that as cloud security professionals, it is crucial for us to be prepared and understand how to respond to them. So in today's video, we're going to dive into the details of ransomware attacks on Amazon S3, showing you how they can be simulated, detected, and investigated. But first, a little bit of context. Over the past year, the AWS CERT has responded to hundreds of such security events, including the unauthorized use of AWS Identity and Access Management or IAM credentials, ransomware and data deletion in an AWS account, and billing increases due to the creation of unauthorized resources to mine cryptocurrency. By the way, if you're not familiar with how Cloud IAM works or how IAM works within AWS, I made a video about this going into all the details that you need to know in order to get started with Cloud IAM. Definitely check it out using the link in the description or somewhere on the card on the screen. So, in December of 2022, AWS released 5 workshops that simulate these security events to help you learn the tools and procedures that AWS CERT uses daily to detect, investigate, and respond to such security events. The workshop covers AWS services and tools such as Amazon GuardDuty, Amazon CloudTrail, Amazon CloudWatch, Amazon Athena, and AWS WAF, as well as some open source tools written and published by AWS CERT. In order to access any of the workshops, one of which we'll be doing today, you need an AWS account, an internet connection, and of course, the desire to learn more about incident response in the AWS cloud. So, in today's video, we'll be simulating, detecting, and investigating a ransomware attack on S3. We'll be using an AWS CloudFormation template to replicate an environment with multiple IAM users and 5 Amazon S3 buckets. After that, we'll use the AWS Cloud Shell to run a bash script that simulates data exfiltration and data deletion events that replicate a ransomware-based security event. We'll also learn the tools and processes that AWS CERT uses to respond to similar events and how to use these tools to find evidence of unauthorized S3 buckets and object deletions.
Alright, so this is the blog post that shows the announcement of the AWS CERT releasing 5 publicly available workshops. And the one we're going to be focusing on is these ransomware on S3 security event simulation and detections. Let's go ahead and click into that. By the way, I'm already signed into my AWS account over here. As you can see, things are up and running here. Different things have been deployed here. So it's a fairly active account. If you've not created an AWS account, you should definitely go ahead and create one before getting started with this challenge. So during this workshop, we're going to use a CloudFormation template to replicate an environment with multiple IAM users, 5 Amazon S3 buckets, and all of those things that we've mentioned earlier on within the video. So let's just get right into it. So we're going to click next, and here we have the introduction. So here we're going to learn about open source tools such as the Assisted Log Enabler and the Security Analytics Bootstrap. We'll then use a bash script within AWS Cloud Shell to simulate a security event typical in nature to the suspicious activity conducted by ransomware. After this, we'll have the opportunity to investigate and identify evidence related to the data destruction and exfiltration from an S3 bucket. And this workshop is designed to help people interested in learning how to respond to security events in AWS. Basic knowledge of AWS will be helpful for the workshop. Familiarity with SQL and Linux will also be helpful, but it's not a requirement. And the approximate time or duration for this workshop is about an hour. So we've got enough time to do that. So let's dive right into it. So the goal here is after completing this workshop, we would have performed Athena queries and other tasks to respond to and review log data and other indicators of compromise. Would have learned about various CloudTrail events that will aid in response activities related to suspicious activity. Would have also viewed CloudWatch metrics to provide additional indicators of data retrieval and data deletion. Would have used the AWS billing service and cost usage reports to identify other indicators of compromise. And finally, would use Amazon GuardDuty to view findings triggered by S3 bucket tampering. All right, let's go ahead to the next phase. And here we're faced with the AWS CERT tools and resources. Basically, this workshop automatically installs tools used by the AWS CERT and then sets them up into a preconfigured AWS environment. And the tools here is the Assisted Log Enabler and the Security Analytics Bootstrap. And what the Assisted Log Enabler does is it's an open source tool designed to ease the customer burden of turning on login capabilities in the middle of a security event. And what it does is it performs the work of creating a S3 bucket, checking the services to see whether login is turned on, and activating login if it is turned off. And login is super important if you're going to be doing incident response and threat detection. And when this work is performed, customers can be assured that the login within their AWS environment is active to assist with investigation in the case of a security event. And if we take a look at what it looks like here, I'm actually just going to open this page, and it does look like a GitHub repo, and it automatically turns on login for VPC flow logs, CloudTrail, EKS, Route 53, ELB, GuardKey. So I think I already have some of these logs enabled, but if some of them are not enabled, I think it's going to just turn them on for us. So let's head back and see what the security analytics bootstrap is here. And this looks like enables customers to perform security investigations on AWS service logs by providing an Amazon Athena analysis environment. So I believe it's going to deploy Amazon Athena for us, and then we can use that to analyze CloudTrail logs, VPC flow logs for network events, and Route 53 DNS logs for DNS resolution events. So it's going to be really cool to see how all of this works together. All right, these are some additional resources. These are published by the AWS CERT to help with incident response activities using the tools in addition to the tools listed above. And this includes AWS CERT playbooks, which we can find here. So there are a bunch of playbooks for responding to specific kind of attacks. So we'll also leave this open. And then other workshops as well. So these are part of the workshops that they announced here in that blog. So yeah, there's multiple other ones. But all that aside, let's just get into the next stage, which is getting started. So this workshop is available for use at AWS events, but also in a self-guided format, which is what we're going to be doing in this video, and deploying all the resources in there. So everything that you need here should fall under the AWS free tier. So you might not have to worry about the cost that much. So let's go on to next. And we're not going to be doing this with a workshop. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into using my own AWS environment. And we're going to do the cleanup later on. So just going to do next here. And then, all right, that looks better. All right, so let's go ahead and download the CloudFormation template with this link. That's going to download it, and then it's going to check. All right, so it's asking if guard duty is enabled. It says follow the step if guard duty is enabled in your account. Otherwise, the CloudFormation template will fail to complete. So I do know that guard duty is enabled with this environment because I've used it to test out some other things in the past. So let's go ahead and look at that here. And yes, guard duty is enabled. We have a couple of findings here, actually, probably with the Kubernetes goats deployment I did earlier today. So that is expected, of course. So let's go back here and see what they want us to do. They want us to edit that file. So let's go into the downloads and go ahead and edit that file. All right, so following the instructions from that guide, I already know that I have guard duty within this environment. So I'm just going to delete this particular 5 lines because I know I already have that. I'm just going to save that and then close this. So back here, once the CloudFormation template has been downloaded, we're going to navigate to the CloudFormation management console. So let's just go ahead and do that. I'm going to just open here and just go into CloudFormation, and then what we're going to do is we're going to create a stack, and then we're going to use with new resources, and then we're going to just upload a template file, choose the file from our downloads here. I'm going to find that downloads here, and then that YAML file we just edited, and then click next, and then we're just going to name this. Ooh, looks like there's an error. Line 2433, column 1. Let's take a look at that. Line 2433, column 1. Let's go look at line 2433, 2433, column 1. That looks weird. That seems weird. It doesn't seem like anything is wrong there. Just gonna do a shift tab there. Everything looks fine. I don't see any issue here. That's kind of weird. That is kind of weird. YAML not well formed. Interesting. Wonder what the issue here is. Okay, so I realized what the issue is. I over deleted when I first deleted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close this out and head back in here. Okay, so I'm going to head back in here and I'm going to delete that first YAML file I downloaded. I realized what mistake I made, so I'm going to delete that file and I'm going to go back in here and I am going to actually not there. Whoa. All right, I'm going to go back in here and then re-download that CloudFormation template and then go ahead and open it with VS Code. And what I intended to delete, or what I was supposed to initially delete, let's close that out. What I was supposed to actually delete was not including the resources. So I have deleted there. So I'm just going to delete these lines here, just these lines. All right, and then we should be good. I'm going to save that, close this out, and then head back into CloudFormation. and then head back into CloudFormation, and then we're going to choose File, and we're going to choose that same CloudFormation stack, and then we're going to click Next. Oh, great. There we go. We're going to name this TDIR, and then params, we're going to use a specific date here. So we're going to use a specific date here, and today's date is 2023. Month is 10, and then year, days 30, 31. I mean, all right, cool. I'm going to click Next, and then looks like everything here looks fine. I don't think there's anything we need to add here. Rollback all stat. Yes, we want that. Use deletion policy. I'm gonna click Next. Come on. Are we? Oh, we're not. Okay. I just have to clear that out. That kind of scared me because I was like, I already fixed that. All right. Cool. All that looks good. I acknowledge this is going to create IAM user. So that's fine with me. So I'm going to submit. And then this should basically take less than 5 minutes. And we can take a look at all the, things happening within the events here as everything is being created. So let's just wait for that to fully deploy all the resources. All right. Check. All right. Let me bring the camera back. All right, it looks like everything's successfully deployed and we have everything created complete here, which is amazing. Perfect. Now we can move on to the next phase of this. So we're done with the setup. Let's go into the next phase. And here we're going to be using Amazon Athena. So in the previous section, we created a detection and analysis environment to investigate security events. As a matter of fact, we can take a look at the different resources that were created here. We see there was a security role, there was a managed policy, there was an Athena work group, there were buckets, there were some logs, also some CloudTrail queries, some DNS logs, some queries as well, some functions were invoked, I believe might be Lambda, I think. Yeah, just a bunch of things here. Access keys, some roles, some more roles, some buckets, some users, a bunch of users, a lot of users. VPCs. So a lot of really amazing resources regarding this particular scenario were created, which is pretty cool. So the goal here for this next stage is this environment includes Amazon Athena, which is a serverless interactive query service that allows us to query data set using SQL. I've actually done a video in the past about analyzing like an attack using Amazon Athena and also simulating the attack as well. So you can definitely check that out using the link in the description or a card somewhere on the screen. And then yeah, so we're going to be running Athena. So let's go ahead and just do that. Let's go back here. I like to leave all my tabs open if you already didn't notice. So let's just go ahead and search for Athena, which is a really beautiful name for a service. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and actually, we're just going to go to the sidebar here and go to the query editor. So the query editor here, and we have this AWS data catalog and then database. The work group here we're going to do is the IR workshop glue. So I've actually done some other ones with flaws.cloud, which I've made videos about. I'll link those in the description as well as with the card on the screen, but we're focused on this IR workshop glue database, which has the details that we need for this particular lab. And then let's actually run a test query. So we're going to do a select everything from this IR workshop glue table database, if I'm not mistaken, and then .ir workshop glue table VPC flow, and then we just want to surface the first 10 results and we'll run that. Okay, looks like I'm missing something here. Let me just copy the command here and then actually paste it. I had some typos in that query, so definitely makes sense that it didn't run properly. So let's run that again, and boom, we have some details here. Looks like we have details about the account ID, interface ID, destination address, source port, destination port, protocol. So these look like network logs. These look like VPC flow logs, which is evident within this VPC flow table. So yeah, it looks like everything is working fine, and our environment is now ready for us to conduct security investigations. All right, so that we can avoid any issues with my face blocking any details here, I'm just going to turn off my camera and we're going to continue with the rest of the lab. All right, so also several commonly used Athena queries are bundled with the Security Analytics Bootstrap. And if we go into saved queries and go into the IR Workshop Athena workgroup, we see a couple of queries here. So we see 3 queries, one for VPC flow example queries, one for DNS example queries, and one for CloudTrail example queries. So we can either choose to write our own queries or use any of these saved queries. So let's use one of these saved queries to take a look at user activity, and we're going to select the CloudTrail example query here, and this gives us a pop-up here and it shows us what settings it would use, and we can go ahead and acknowledge that. It gives us the details about this particular query. It's Amazon's copyright, and it does some partition tests and every of those things, and there's some really nice comments letting us know what the query does, what the different queries do as a matter of fact. So we have this first query returning 10 rows with all the fields limited to a single account, so where all the details details are regarding this particular account. There are a lot of queries here that we can use, but the query that we're actually interested in is between lines 106 and 119. So let's go ahead and go to those lines, and yeah, we can find it right here. So between 106 and 119, there we go. Now, you might be wondering, how do we actually get to use these queries if all of them are just jumbled up within a single view like this? Well, we can go ahead and copy this query and then just click the plus button here and paste that query here and then run it. So now we don't have to be tied to this particular page, because we can just copy and paste any of these queries into new views within the Amazon Athena interface. So let's go ahead and run this particular query. But before we actually take a look at the results, let's actually analyze what this query is doing. So it's selecting the user identity ARN with distinct event names as event names, and then looking for the source IP address or joining it by the source IP address. Same thing for user agents and everything from this IR workshop glue database table. And then it's looking for where the event name, and it's looking for where the event name is not equal to a Zoom role. And then when the event name is not like get, a list, or describe. So these are all sort of like enumeration API calls, and then looking for these particular date partitions and this particular account partition, and then the regions, and then grouping by the user identity ARN. Now, in order for this to work, we have to edit lines 11 and 12 by changing the date in line 11 to today's date. So today's date is actually 2023. I remember we did this within our CloudFormation template. So 2023 10, I believe 31, and then pasting the account number for our AWS account within the account partition field. So let's go ahead and actually click on that, and then account ID right here, and then just go ahead and paste in that in here. Perfect. And then we can now go ahead and run this. Real quick, before we get back into the investigation, as you can see, there is a lot to know about cloud security. So much to keep up to date on in regards to the services, and even so much to know about investigating, detecting, and responding to threats within cloud environments, or even within AWS, for example. Well, I'm excited to introduce a new sponsor on the channel, CloudSecList. The cloud security industry is an extremely fast-paced one, filled with numerous service providers, tools, vulnerabilities, and vendors. With all of these things, it can be challenging to stay up to date on what's happening in the industry. This is exactly where CloudSecList comes in. CloudSecList is the newsletter for cloud security professionals that saves you the trouble of tracking every development within the industry. CloudSecList is one of the best ways to stay abreast of the cloud security landscape without getting lost in the noise. Delivered weekly to your email, this newsletter keeps you informed about the latest news and updates related to the security of cloud-native technology. I've personally been a subscriber for over a year now, and some of my published work has even been featured on the newsletter. This shows my engagement with the newsletter since the beginning of my personal cloud security journey. This is also why I was more than happy to work with CloudSecList on sharing this newsletter with my audience. The beauty of the CloudSecList newsletter lies in its laser focus on cloud security, ensuring that your time is not wasted on unrelated topics. It's also recommended by several industry experts, attesting to its quality and credibility in the cloud security industry. Click the first link in the description to join over 10,000 busy professionals receiving curated cloud security news weekly from the CloudSecList newsletter. A big thank you to CloudSecList for sponsoring this video and supporting the channel. Alright, so for some reason, this particular query did not run, and for the life of me, I could not figure out why. So I decided to pick out another query and try the same thing, and I ran it just as it was. Actually, let me fix that up, and yeah, so I ran it just like that, and it didn't work. So I was like, you know what, maybe the date is the issue here. So I decided to just clear out that date and run that query again, and boom, I have details here that show that this actually works. So I realized, well, maybe if I do the same thing here and take out this less than or equal to date here, I might be able to get the results that I want to get, and boom, perfect. So looks like it works. So if you run into any issues, just try to figure out, maybe it might be something with your dates. I think there might be some issue with the date here, maybe my fault or whatever the configuration was, but that's totally fine. As long as we get the details that we want, that's totally fine. But we can see the different actions from the specific user ARN as well as the event names all grouped into this array. And then we can also see the source IP addresses, the user agents performing these activities as well, just the way we wanted them grouped within the query query. And we can see here, we can see our IAM user, our IAM admin user, which is my main user within this environment, performing a bunch of activities such as search tables, search, start query execution. So that's me doing all of those things. I'm the one doing all of these Athena-based actions. And you can see this is from a specific source IP as well as the Athena source IP within AWS. So you can also see the user agent right here as well. And we can also see that the assumed role for our CloudFormation template perform the activity of perform the event name of put object. So this is great, which means that everything is working, and that means that, we can do a lot of analysis from this stage. So let's go on to the next section. We can of course keep playing around with a bunch of these different queries, but for now we're good, and we know that this thing works by this query we ran. So let's go into the next stage, which will actually be simulating the ransomware attack. So in this section, we will actually simulate a scenario where a security event based on ransomware has occurred in the AWS account through the use of a script invoked within AWS Cloud Shell. So the script performs a bunch of activities that have been commonly seen by the AWS customer incident response team during this type of security event. And at the end of the script, you'll be provided with an indicator of compromise, and you will use this indicator of compromise as the first piece of information to help you through the investigation. So let's jump right into it. All right, so let's go ahead and download that bash script right here. And then once the bash script has been downloaded, we're going to navigate to the AWS Cloud Shell. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me just hop into it from here, and let me just open it in a new page here. And again, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera so that we don't have any issues with my face covering important details. All right, so what we're gonna do is just gonna click through this welcome page, and I'm just gonna close it here, and then I'm just gonna make this bigger, just so that we can see what is going on here. So let's make this bigger, boom, boom, and that looks better. All right, so let's go into our actions drop menu, and then we're going to upload a file, and we're gonna choose that script that we downloaded within the initial instruction. All right, looks like the file was successfully uploaded to our home / Cloud Shell user. So let's just go ahead and look for that file. Let's do an ls here, and we can see that file already exists there. Next, we want to add the executable bit to this script to make sure we can actually run it. So let's actually do that. And then next we're going to run that script. So there we go. Now this should basically do a bunch of simulations within the environment, and we're going to take a look at what that looks like as it runs the script. All right, looks like the scenario has been fully deployed with the bash script, and we can see the scenario here reads that a strange Amazon S3 bucket has appeared in our AWS account. Upon further investigation, the S3 bucket contains what appears to be a ransom note. Use your AWS skills to determine the scope of any unauthorized use and discover what data has been taken and what data has been deleted. There are questions at the beginning of each detection section of this workshop that can be used to prompt your investigation if you get stuck. The end of each detection section will have hints and a walkthrough to help provide answers to the questions. Good luck. All right, so let's check out the questions that we're going to be going through within the investigation. So the very first question is, what is the name of the IAM user that created the bucket and what time was it created? And then second question is, was the IAM user that created the bucket the same IAM user that uploaded the ransom note? So let's take a look at our buckets here. I'm going to just zoom this out a little bit, and we can see we have about 12 buckets here. So these are the simulation bucket. Let me zoom this out a little bit more. A bunch of buckets here. So there are a bunch of buckets here. And if we scroll the way down, we see this really interesting bucket that says we stole your data. And if we look, you see an object that states all your data are belong to us. And if we go ahead and take a look at this thing, so we don't have access to that, which is kind of weird. What can we do here? Well, we can go ahead and download that file and take a look at what it looks like. So let's go ahead and download that. Take a look at that text file. Lo and behold, this is the text file. And look at what it says. It says, we have deleted all your files and have taken your customer data, including the credit card data CSV file containing the credit card numbers of every single one of your 10 customers. And what are they demanding? They're saying, pay us $100 billion in Bitcoin within 48 hours and we will return the file and promise not to leak into the dark web. Bitcoin wallet address, something in there. So that is a pretty ubiquitous ransomware note. It's pretty similar to what you might see out there in various reports and stuff like that. So now we know that, this actor is definitely obviously has done some malicious things in the environment. Let's go ahead and start investigating the attacks. And the very first question we're asked here is, what is the name of the IAM user that created the bucket and what time was it created? Let's go ahead and look at how we can find answers to that question. So we're going to go back into our query editor here. I'm just going to clear out this particular query. And so we're going to formulate a query that's going to help us to find when a bucket was created. And we're going to look at the details within the results of that query. So we're going to just do a select from IR workshop glue database, actually not table CloudTrail. So glue database here, and then I can type, and then dot IR workshop glue table CloudTrail. I'm just going to follow in the same format from, what we have here. So it's pretty straightforward there. And then we're looking for where the event name is going to be a create bucket, which is basically the API call that logs the creation of a bucket. Now, we don't want to just look for any created bucket activity, since we know from our investigation initially when we looked at our buckets that this is possibly the bucket that was the compromised bucket with the ransomware node we just take a look at. We can actually just specify that we want a bucket that looks something like this. So we're going to specify that by using and a request parameters like this, and we're going to use percentage. And if you're not familiar with SQL, the percentage just helps us to match if something is different before that particular parameter or after that parameter. And the request parameters are details you can find within CloudTrail that lets you know specific intricate details about what happened. For example, with this create bucket, we can see the details about what exactly the bucket name is, and we can find this restore your data hopefully within that request parameter. So let's go ahead and run this query. It looks like we're having issues here with my equals to, so I'm going to stick out 1, and we're going to run that query again, and boom, we have this result back for this IAM user within the user identity type array, and we can see we have a IAM user of TDIR workshop row dev. I'm just going to copy that and just add it as a comment here for the user. I'm just going to name that IAM user. So we know that's IAM user we're looking for. And if we want to, we can actually just copy the whole user ARN just in case we want to use that within our investigation. So we can do a user ARN here. And this is just going to be a comment, so it's not going to run with our query. But I'm just taking some notes there. And we can see that we have other details about the user. And we see the create bucket API call from this IP address, and they use this particular user agent, which was Cloud Shell, and a bunch of request parameters. And we can see the object is restore your data bucket, and a bunch of other details about the authentication. So we know that it was this user that created that bucket. We've basically been able to answer this question. Now, in terms of what time this bucket was created, let's go back into our query editor, and we can see the event time here is this right here, and we can just pop that in there as well. And this is just me taking my notes once again. So event time is that. That's the first question. Now the next question is asking us, was the IAM user that created the bucket the same IAM user that uploaded the ransomware note? So if we're looking for something in regards to uploading something to a bucket, we're looking for the put object API call. So let's just go ahead and formulate our query to look for that activity. So let's go ahead and just do a put object API call, and where the request parameters is going to be something that looks along the lines of this particular file that was uploaded, the ransomware node, and we're just going to run that in there, enter, and oddly enough, we don't see any activity. Let's see what happens if I take out this to see all the put object requests there. And let's see, put object, and I'm trying to, okay, this was not done by the user, this was done by the Lambda execution rule, so it's not what we're looking for here. Now that's kind of weird because we know that an object was uploaded to a bucket, but we can't see any evidence that that might have happened. So this might seem like some sort of tampering was done for the object login. So let's actually confirm our thought process here, because we know that something was uploaded, but we can't see the logs for it, but we can see other logs as well, right? So let's look at all the activities that were performed by this particular user and kind of formulate our storyline as we're doing this investigation. So let's go ahead and just rework this query to look for where the user identity, the username, or even the ARN, whichever one works for us, but we're just going to use the username, is this particular user right here that we found initially. And then we're just gonna put that in quotes and just to make some space here, and then just run that. And boom, we have a bunch of actions that occurred for this user. Let's go ahead and just sort this by the event time so we have a more accurate description of what happened. So is this sorted by time? It's not. 13, 14, 16. Oh, it is sorted by time. So, okay, cool. let's look at the API calls that happen. So we see the first thing the user did, maybe it was a compromised user, was they did a get caller identity API call, which is basically used to find information about the credentials that are currently used by the user. So basically, if you're familiar with who am I within a Linux system, it's just basically orienting yourself in regards to the user that you're currently logged in as. And this is the same thing with the get caller identity API call within AWS. And the next thing they did was a put bucket login. Now this API call basically changes the login status of an S3 bucket. And this could actually validate our initial thought of the possibility of some login manipulation here by the attacker, because we're not able to see that put object activity for the bucket. And we can see that this activity was done on, let's see what bucket it was done on. It was done on it was done on a different bucket. So I might be actually wrong about that particular case, but nonetheless, let's go on to the next ones that the attacker did. So they did a list bucket twice, so basically just enumerating, finding what buckets exist within the AWS environment. And they did a create bucket, and here they created a bucket, and I believe this is the bucket that contains that we store your data. Yeah, exactly. So they created that we store your data bucket, and now that I think about it, I can probably see where the possibility of not being able to see that put object action comes in, because this was a bucket that was created by the attacker. So if they created the attacker, they most likely don't want us to see what they're doing within that bucket. And if we have other sort of login for other buckets within our environment, then the attacker probably doesn't want us to detect their activities within the bucket that they created. So that's probably why we're not able to see that put object API call. And finally, they did a put bucket tagging API call, which is basically just creating a tag or multiple tags for the bucket. And we can see here, the tags is for all SIM buckets, and the value here is TDIR workshop 01. And those are basically the actions that this compromised user that we already confirmed here performed within the environment. Now, I realize the video is getting a bit long, so I'm going to end it here, and we're going to continue this scenario in another video.
And that wraps up this video on ransomware attacks on Amazon S3. I hope this video helps you understand the importance of preparing for these kind of security events within the cloud, and also equips you with the knowledge and tools to detect, investigate, and respond effectively should you ever face any of these sort of events within your own cloud environment. Remember, the key to successful cloud security is constant vigilance and a proactive approach. And part of being proactive is continuous learning. And I hope you've learned something new from this video. So make sure to stay tuned for more videos in this cloud incident response series, as there are 4 other workshops to go through. Also, be sure to check out the CloudSecList newsletter for your weekly curated cloud security news. A huge thanks to CloudSecList for sponsoring this video, and thanks to you for watching this video. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.